Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. And today we have 4 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. Dealing with noisy neighbors' unruly kids, I fought back by playing anxiety-inducing music, quelling their endless screams and restoring neighborhood peace. The second story. Fired early, sought revenge after years. Saw ex-boss interviewing, subtly warned current boss. Ex-boss struggled, called for business, pulled business, derailed ex-boss. The third story. Rideshare scammer ups price. I booked their cars with fake info, fake delays. The first story is, allow your kids to scream all day every day? It's time for some revenge. When I moved into my house almost 4 years ago, I quickly realized that my one neighbor was going to be a problem. This was because their oldest child, who was 6 at the time, climbed over my fence while I was in my backyard on day 2 of living there. He told me that I was on his property and I had to get out. Thinking that he just didn't understand how things work due to his age, I kindly explained that on the other side of the fence was his parents' property. On the side of the fence we were on was my property. I also told him that the fence was actually mine and he's not allowed to climb on it or come into my yard without permission. He then screamed at me, "F off, you see!" I was in shock. I immediately said that I was going to talk to his parents, and he ran back to his yard. When I spoke to his parents, who only lived in their house for a month previous to this incident, they claimed there was nothing they could do about their kid's behavior. This was just the start. The oldest child did this exact same thing to everyone else in our neighborhood. He then would sneak into the yards in our neighborhood with other children and assault them. He regularly would beat his younger brothers, who would scream in pain. The screaming was not just from that. It was constant rage screaming between the 3 children living in the house, and their parents would do absolutely nothing about any of this. It was so loud that I could clearly hear it when I was working in my office in the basement. This basement has soundproof insulation. The people of my neighborhood couldn't take it anymore, and everyone asked them at different times to calm the kids' noise. The parents said in all seriousness that there was nothing they were going to do. Kids are kids after all. So that's when I thought, why not give them a little payback? So I found music playlists that were specifically to induce anxiety and stress. Spotify has a wonderful collection of these. When the screaming would start, I would go to my backyard with a loud portable speaker and play it at a level, and at during times it's acceptable by city ordinance. It works like a charm. By the middle of the first song comes the whining. With the second comes the shrill screams of, "I don't like this." By the third, they run into the house. So in other words, within 15 minutes, they now stop. After I figured out that this works, I told everyone in my neighborhood. A few minutes ago, the kids started rage screaming at each other again. Without consultation, each house around theirs as well as across the street started playing hardcore rap and rage metal. 15 minutes later, the entire neighborhood is blissfully quiet. Works like a charm. Edit. Update. I feel I need to address a few things that I tried to speak on in the comments. The family in question is not a healthy family unit. It's very clear to everyone in our neighborhood that the children are neglected. I do not have enough fingers and toes to count all the people in the neighborhood, including myself, who reached out to all the possible authorities who could take action. I will not say where I live, but where I am located, the police are very well known to do anything but police. It's an open issue that the latest police chief claims he will solve. So far, no luck. Children's services are actively involved, and the only thing that happens is that they call the parents to book a date and time weekly to do an in-house visit. Before the worker shows up, they clean the kids up and take them out to the front yard to play when the worker arrives. The mom plays with them and the dad leaves the house right before the worker arrives. Why? I have no idea. Just theories. When the worker arrives, everything looks wonderful. Children's services have all the video, photos, and audio of clear evidence of neglect, child endangerment, the parents saying that they will not do things to keep them safe or that they will parent them. The list goes on. This year alone, the police has been there 4 times for domestic assault. And once when they left, their 6-year-old run away after supper. They decided he would come back when he was ready and then went to bed. He was found in a park at 3 a.m. Their school is aware of this and have reported them to Children's Services. The police has told me that both parents have a file from their own actions, both past and current, their behavior towards each other and towards the children, and the countless complaints from people in our neighborhood. Apparently, this file is extensive. With all this, no charges and the children are still being treated the same. So to respond to the majority of the questions, we collectively have done everything we can to help this family. We're actively contacting authorities when we see or hear something. As for the comments concerning I should have played classical music to soothe the children, I do appreciate your suggestion. The problem was today the kids were doing what they commonly do when they're outside. Usually the oldest tells the other two children to either have a screaming contest or they all just rage scream at each other. This has gone on for hours. Soothing doesn't work. Asking the parents for them to quiet down doesn't work. And calling the authorities, including by law for noise complaints, does not work. It has been 4 years of this, and I thought of this solution when my husband was drilling into metal recently. The kids hated the sound and went inside. Tried it with the anxiety playlist and it worked. Told the neighbors and they do it too. It's amazing how this is actually working. The kids quickly shut up. If the parents aren't willing to parent, something has to be done. This is the only thing that's worked and thank God it is. The next story is, I was fired early in my career by a team of 2 senior people I reported to. Revenge came in time. When I was in my early 20s trying to make it in the world and just starting out, I reported to a senior sales team as a junior salesperson. Really, it was a support role and I knew my place. Watch, stay quiet, learn, and help them. I report to a lady who was mid-level and the senior guy who was head of sales. I was green, and while I was seeking mentorship and periodically asking for advice to improve how I was able to support them, they mistook it for incompetence. It was simple things like learning what format each of them preferred their daily reports in and tasks they had to do. I also had an issue because the senior guy basically stole my first bonus at the 3-month mark. It was a tiny amount to him, but a lot for young me. I didn't officially complain, but asked him how he was able to keep my bonus when it was obvious it tracked back to my efforts on the data. He didn't like that and he didn't pay me. I was doing a good job. I'm fully aware of my skills, but with explanation, it's just not working out. They fired me a few weeks later. I spent a couple months getting a new job, which turned out to be an amazing smaller firm where I was appreciated, mentored correctly, and thrived. The new firm was very successful. About 2 years later, after I'd become a vital but still junior part of the smaller company, my former firm closed up in the region and put everyone out of work. So I saw through the glass while walking by the boardroom one day that the senior guy who stole my bonus was being interviewed for a job at my current firm. My current superiors didn't see me walk by, but my old boss and I made eye contact. Now, in a small sales team at a small firm, it's important to have a nice working relationship and trust. It's also a lot of selfish salespeople who are there to make money and don't like being ripped off. So later that afternoon, I quietly mentioned to the one boss, I saw X in the office today when I walked by. I used to work for him. That a-hole stole my bonus one time. It was all I needed to say, because the last thing my current boss needed was a person who'd do that on our team. Then times got tough and I know that man spent 2 years looking for work. 6 or 7 years later, I was at a new company in a more senior role, and the one lady who I originally reported to called me and was selling at a new firm, and she was calling to ask if I'd be interested in purchasing from her. I didn't know she had started working there. The firm she was with was selling something that was very basic and interchangeable to competing firms. She'd gone from selling important things to selling a nothing product after the original firm closed. She acted all happy and nice to me, and recalled the great job I did when we worked together. I also know she didn't want to be talking to me, but her call log said she had to call. I told her thanks and send me along an official quote and proposal. Several hours of work for her. In the industry we were in, she was paid not only on new sales, but a net sales measurement, meaning she had to retain clients as well and bring in new ones. I had a lot of commitment at the firm she was now at. While she spent her afternoon drafting a proposal, I spent a couple hours pulling all my business from that company and subbing it for a competitor up the street. She emailed me a full proposal and mentioned she was excited to be working with me again and supporting my business. She had no idea yet I'd just pulled everything, and she would never receive a bonus this year because of the size of the amount I pulled. The next day, she emailed me quite upset and had CC'd her boss, who I've known for years and had a good working relationship with. I replied to all and thanked her and said I'd decide to go with a competitor because it just won't work out as I find your approach to business dealings to be insincere. Her boss emailed me back directly and asked what happened, and I replied that I just don't think she's a sincere person. My business to their firm was worth more than her job, and she didn't last more than a month there after that. The third story is, rideshare scammed me. I used to rideshare quite often and never had issues until people started doing it as a hustle. One of the last rideshares I ever took was beyond frustrating. I book a rideshare that's typically $30, but they wanted $35. I figure it's just $5 and book it anyway. On the day of, me and 3 others are waiting to be picked up and the guy doesn't show up and stops responding. Right around this time, another guy not matching the description and a different vehicle pulls up and asks if we're waiting for a rideshare. He says his didn't get booked up and was going to the same place. We all figure, screw it, we gotta get to where we're going and all get in. This vehicle was not nearly as nice as what we were expecting. In fact, I'd say it was hardly safe enough to be on the road. We proceed on to our destination about 5 hours away, and the guy's driving like a madman, going way over the limit, hardly paying attention to the road, and yelling on the phone while chewing food with his mouth open. We stop for gas halfway and is typically where payment is collected. I go to hand him the $35 I agreed on, even though I forgot we went with someone else, and he says to me it's $70 per person. I said absolutely not and called him out on the bait and switch, and he threatened to leave me at some random gas station in the middle of nowhere. The other passengers were also upset, and we all settled on $50 per person to meet the part way. He accepts the cash and we all get back in. Again, no music, just him yelling on the phone while eating and speeding. A few minutes in, I tell the guy to pull over and we all start raising our concerns with his driving. One of the ladies in the back had a toddler with her and was very upset. He yelled at all of us saying he knows how to drive, that if we don't like it we can get out just off the side of the highway where we got him to stop. We then civilly and politely asked him to just even slow down a little, and he made a big fuss then agreed. Surprisingly, he did slow down, but now instead of being in a call, he was texting the whole time, and we almost got into an accident when he barely stopped in time, since he was hardly paying attention and the brakes hardly worked. We finally got to the destination and we were all relieved to be done with it. I was determined to report this guy, so I took a quick photo of his license plate. He saw me do this and immediately attacked me, grabbed both my arms and tried to wrestle my phone out of my hands and tried knocking it out and pushed me a few times. I walked into a store and called the police, and asked witnesses while waiting if they'd share what they saw. They were all too scared to get involved. The police actually showed up before the guy left, but as soon as the cops approached him, he had 2 other vehicles pull up and back him up. This is when I realized these scammers have a whole network going. They claimed that I attacked the other guy and his girlfriend claimed I hit her as well. The cop then tried to access security footage from nearby, and we were in a blind spot. The cop basically said, "You guys figure it out," and all the cops drove off. Didn't take a report or anything. So I sat on this for a couple days, and devised I had to get them back somehow. I set up about 7 or 8 fake phone numbers and texted both numbers that I had for these guys, booking up every car they had. I even took it a step further and offered extra to be picked up at various locations far apart from each other. Took some convincing, but they agreed for the right price. I booked up 2 cars with fake details, and then every time they'd text that they arrived, I would say, "Taking an SH, I'll be right out." Until enough time had passed, they would just call instead, and I would just answer the wettest fart sounds the internet had to offer. You could hear the frustration building with each time this happened. Best part is they kept falling for it because they had no way of knowing if the next pickup was legit. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to know when the new video comes out, and hit the like button to support the channel.